importance of qualia in philosophy of mind comes largely from the fact that they are often seen as posing a fundamental problem for materialist explanations of the mind-body problem. Much of the debate over their existence hinges on the definition of the term that is used, as various philosophers emphasize or deny the existence of certain properties. Daniel Dennett coined the terms qualiphiles for philosophers who believe in qualia and qualiphobes for those who don't.
Yes, I think I'll use that as well. At the end of this email, there's going to be some principles that you'll need to be cool with in order to continue having any kind of interaction with me. This is one of them, so I'll just mention it now. Pod layer theory has elements to it that inform on these kinds of theories, so I guess as they come up, I'll mention pod layer's position on them. Pod layer theory is qualifiable, and we who study pod layer know that it to be true, consider qualiphobes to be stupid. So anyone who does not actually know that they are a cognitive configuration is kind of stupid. Anyone who does not know what that is kind of stupid. Anyone who does not know what the cognitive configuration of those immediately around them is kind of stupid, and if they don't know what that means to them, they're kind of stupid. This sounds harsh what I'm saying, but my spirit's saying I have to say this because you're talking about the human psyche, which I think we can agree is more dangerous and beautiful and impactful than a knife, than a bomb, because it is the human psyche that made the bomb. So we're talking about the most powerful force in the cosmos, really, is the human psyche. If you had to say it is, we are the most evolved thing that the cosmos has done, and thus the most powerful, and the most powerful and evolved thing about us is our brain. So, I mean, we had to focus on that. So, if you don't know what kind of brain you have, you are messing up Human 101. I don't care if you somehow been allowed to skip through that training, and you are now on human training, 4,000, you're off getting various, degrees, you have alphabet soup after your name, you're out making millions of dollars. You need to stop what you're doing because you're rearranging deck chairs in the Titanic. Everything you are, ever have been, or ever will be, is your cognitive configuration and the development and validation and fulfillment it has. Period. This may sound new agey, and that may tempt you to put me in the new agey section of the bookstore. I may go over there, but I'll also be heavily represented in the scientific journal section of the bookstore, so this is not something whipped you can push away. You need to accept that you are a cognitive configuration. All humans need to accept their cognitive configuration. I'm not going to give them any choice but to accept that they are a cognitive configuration, which is why I must go my own way now. And only be around people who are going to be cool with that, because I have a fight coming to me. I have a fight with all the intellectual models who are going the wrong way, and my intellectual integrity, the superior position that I have, demands that I confront them. I confront them on their inaccuracies. And when they push back, I crush their pushback in debate and demonstration. This is my plan. I'm going to do it. I'm going to win. I have got all the power to do so.
Synesthesia has been a source of inspiration for artists, composers, poets, novelists, and digital artists. New art movements such as literary symbolism, non-figurative art, and visual music have profited from experiments with synesthesia perception and contributed to the public awareness of synesthetic and multisensory ways of perceiving.
I won't go on this too much, except that those of you who are familiar with me enough to know that I was attempting a screenplay, which I'm still doing. It's just going to come after I become extremely wealthy and world famous for being the smartest person on the planet. I think getting my screenplay pushed through after that should be relatively easy. So yeah, my spirits wanted me to translate my synesthetic experience into a screenplay with the attempt of teaching it and maybe even inducing a little of it. So yeah.
David Tammet is well known for his unusually vivid and complex synesthesia. In his mind, he says each positive integer up to 10,000 has its own unique shape, color, texture, and feel. He can intuitively see results of calculations as synesthetic landscapes without using conscious mental effort, and can sense whether a number is prime or composite. He has described his visual image of 289 as particularly ugly, 333 as particularly attractive, and pi as beautiful. The number 6 apparently has no distinct image. Tammet has described 25 as energetic and the kind of number you would invite to a party. Tammet not only verbally describes these visions, but has also created artwork including a watercolor painting of pi.
This much more advanced form of synesthesia that David Tammet has is getting closer to the kind I have. Mine is actually much more powerful and complicated than what Mr. Tammet has. So you're starting to get an idea of the kind of intellectual echelon I'm operating at. I am at whatever the top level is. In fact, I'll be stepping above the current top level and redefining a new top level. I will also be training people how to move up this ladder. I can train them how to use their cognitive configuration in order to do better, so their brain can be better. It can do better, feel better, just better. Awesome. Go ahead.
Tammet holds the European record for reciting pi from memory to 22,514 digits in 5 hours and 9 minutes on March 14, 2009. Tammet's record currently ranks 6th in the world. Professor Alan Snyder at the Australian National University said of Tammet, "Savants can't usually tell us how they do what they do, it just comes to them. Daniel can describe what he sees in his head. That's why he's exciting. He could be the Rosetta Stone."
Okay, nothing against Mr. Tammet, but no, I am the Rosetta Stone. Thomas Chanot is the Rosetta Stone. Padler theory is the Rosetta Stone written down. Straight up. So they are on the right track. What they're working on is what's going to help people. They're trying to figure out how cognitive configurations work. Well, I know, so I can tell them. So the smartest people on the planet who are at the cutting edge, I'm going to tell them what the answers to the equations they're working on are. What else? His feet. Two things. One, it is similar to mine in that quite likely in the contest he was going against, he was challenging a lot of people who are naturally good at memorizing things. And they probably memorized a lot of those things. But what he's doing is he's actually competing in a memorizing thing without using memory. The colors and the personalities of the numbers are presenting themselves like friends. These numbers present themselves as colors, personalities, and then they're like dance partners, which means the next dance partner for pi would be this other personality. It just is. The psyche knows that. Having said that, taking digits out 10,000, and I believe in his greatest feat of 22,000 digits out, that is nothing compared to the data points and the size of calculations that my synesthesia works on. My synesthesia has no interest, for example, in algebra, geometry, trigonometry, physics, those kind of things. It actually considers most of them to be too simple. I have to get into cosmology. I have to get into the entire language of the entire human species through nonverbal manifestations in order to entice my synesthesia to pay attention. Anything less is too small. Now here's the tricky part about me. That's why there is some disability to what I have. I mean, I guess in some ways I'm severely disabled because my synesthesia really does not care about most normal thinking. It's boring. It considers what David Tammet is doing, what he has done, as boring. It's boring. You know why? Well, first of all, 5 other people outdid him. My synesthesia's ego is far too large for that. But my psyche doesn't give a shit about that. It doesn't care about pi. It's boring. So this brings in that warp drive factor. When synesthesia comes on, we call peaking comes on, going liquidy in the perceptual modalities, it kind of just goes. And the psyche basically solves a case for you. And most often, you do not know the case it's solving. That's what makes it so tricky. Now, you can try to apply it to things like taking pi out, 10,000 digits or whatever, 22,000 digits out, places out. But I can tell you that synesthesia, as it gets more and more powerful in the human mind, does not want to do things like that. And you know why? It's boring. I can't tell you the way. It's boring. And the things coming to my spirits right now, I'm asking why it's so boring. Besides the fact that he only got 6th place, which is lame, I'm sorry, does that sound crazy? But I can back everything I'm saying. So yeah, kind of got to do with the comets, with the planet finder. He was pissed off that no humans had known the plans were out there. He was annoyed to be part of a race of people who's that stupid. I feel you, brother. I do. I feel you. So I'm like, that's weak. I look back at the greatest feats humans have ever accomplished in the history of the world and think most of them were, you're alright. I mean, noteworthy, not like exceptional. That's what my synesthesia thinks, that pretty much everything any human's ever accomplished, ever. So on that, how big of an ego does my synesthesia have? By the way, my ego is not this large. My synesthesia and my spirits tell me all the time that my ego is not large enough. They want me to get it larger. But computers. What Mr. Tammet can do, although impressive for a human, would you consider that impressive for a computer? No. Can a computer take pi out 22,000? Yes. Okay, so you're really just replicating something a computer already can do. No. My synesthesia, they're going to have to build a new supercomputer to replicate what I can do. What I can do is unprecedented by human or machine. Badass. Keep going, please.
Tammet can learn new languages very quickly. To prove this for a documentary film, Tammet was challenged to learn Icelandic in 1 week. 7 days later, he appeared on Icelandic television conversing in Icelandic with his Icelandic language instructor, saying it was not human and genius. Tammet states in Born on a Blue Day that he speaks 10 languages, including English, Spanish, French, German, blah, blah, blah. He particularly likes Estonian because it's rich in vowels.
A couple things to note on there. First is that this is very impressive, but it does not impress my synesthesia overly. I mean, it does impress me. I think David Tammet is a very powerful intellect, but I could help him out a great deal. I could teach him how to make his intellect do amazing things. I know it looks like he's done amazing things, but no. What I could teach him to do would be truly amazing. So, again, 10 languages. There are lots of humans who can speak 10 languages. And there are lots of computers that can speak 10 languages. So, impressive compared to most humans, but compared to what humans can do and compared to what I can do, no. That's not impressive because what I can do cannot be done by a machine that currently exists and not by any human as well. Next, the speed at which he did it. He learned that Finnish in that time. If I asked my synesthesia to do that, my synesthesia would kind of tell me to go take a jump in a lake. It would not find learning Finnish interesting. It wouldn't find the challenge interesting, so it wouldn't do it. It would go just fucking keep playing in my head with the latest comic book it's interested in. That's what it would do. Now that may sound silly, but that's fine because it used comic books to actually figure out a great many of these scientific paradoxes that are bothering people. They aren't paradoxes for my spirits, formerly known as imaginary friends. Yeah, even their imaginary friends, before I upgrade them to spirits, yeah, they could already solve really complex math. Now, I didn't understand how they're doing it, and I understand how to speak it. Like David Tennant, it's exciting. I'm very exciting because I now know what's going on in my head. I now know that actually gives me the principles of how cognitive configurations work so that I actually know every other human. I can see it on their face through knowing my own. So that is new. This is a new language, and it's a larger language than any language Mr. Tammet's speaking. It's larger, apparently, than any language, than any software speaking. So it's beyond language you think of humans speaking. I currently got in my head a language that they don't have a computer that's doing yet. So when Tammet does what he's doing to explain how it is working, he's getting his synesthesia to care about that. When his synesthesia gives a shit about that, then learning a language for most minds who are not using this kind of advanced methodologies of the mind, which everyone can do, they're using impulse drive. If you take impulse drive to learn a language, yeah, it takes usually a couple of years, at least several months. But if you warp speed it, for example, him, if he turns on the engine in his mind that lets him do 22,000 places of pi, learning Finnish is correspondingly quite tiny. And that's why he's able to learn it so fast, is because actually for his brain that's actually not a very large problem. So most of my equations that my brain's working on don't work at anything under like 1 million data points. That's why it's taken me half a lifetime to even realize what they're working on, because they're that large. The small ones are coming in. Yes, the thing that's going to actually make me world famous and ridiculously wealthy. Ridiculously? No, I think ludicrously. That's a better word. Ludicrously wealthy. So yeah, that's actually just going to be my jab. That's just the first equation. And once that gets out, my brain will have headspace to do even bigger equations. So I can currently smoke the smartest brains on the planet and the smartest brains that have ever been here. And that's only the first equation of an ongoing algorithm. Once the first one comes out, I'll have more headspace, and in the world, people can begin experimenting on and fleshing it out, and then I'll make tons of more inventions and discoveries off of that. So, yeah, that's just the beginning. So my first step goes so far out beyond where every other scientist and thinker's plan has gone to date, that my first step I have to pause on, turn around, and yell and yell and yell and scream and build bridges and do crazy shit to even hear me. That's how far out ahead of you I am on my first step. Once I put that foot down, get the respect I deserve, I'll start striding quickly. That's slow. That's one step. I don't want to take one step. I want to walk. I want to run. I want to fly. I'm a flyer, baby. I will not be held back. Synesthesia is a beautiful thing. Accept this. Continue.
Savant syndrome, sometimes referred to as savantism, is a rare condition in which people with developmental disorders have one or more areas of expertise, ability, or brilliance that are in contrast with the individual's overall limitations. Although not a recognized medical diagnosis, researcher Gerald Treffert says the condition may be either genetic or acquired.
So, I believe synesthesia, as I mentioned, is just a word. So, am I a synesthete? I don't even know if what is that? I'm an IG. That's what I am. So, maybe I'm a savant. Maybe I'm a synesthetic savant. Maybe a savant synesthetic. No, I'm an IG. That's what I am. But I use these words because they help you people learn and give you context. As I mentioned, my first stride goes so far out ahead of people, I tend to lose context with which to converse with normal humans. It's painful. Have you heard the expression, painfully intelligent? I am painfully intelligent. I cause pain in others because I blow their minds, and it pains me to go so slow even when I'm talking to people who are supposedly the smartest around. When I'm reading people who are the smartest around. When I'm studying people who are the smartest ever to be around. Slow. So slow. So what else? Again, as I mentioned before, I don't consider disability. I do. I have disabilities in that I can't do a lot of things normal people can do. But it's just part of the balancing act. It's part of the countermeasures of my mind. So the more I let my synesthesia do what it does, the more I accept it, the more I allow my life to live in such a way that it doesn't have to ask permission to be what it is. I actually get almost all my gifts with very little problems. Yes, I still have crazy memory problems, but it doesn't matter. The gifts I'm given by the synesthesia make it to where people won't even notice or don't even care. That's how impressive I am. That's how much energy I have. That's how much gifts I'm being given. So it's a gift. The only question is knowing how to do it right. Most humans don't, so when they start trying to do it, they freak out and they run away, which makes them think it's bad. There are a lot of things in psychology, such as shining quotes, that are kind of considered bad in some circles, and that's because they don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent. I don't care what degrees they have. I don't care what PhDs they have. They're incompetent. They can't read the patients. They're incompetent. No one who's a guru, anyone who's a shrink, anyone who's a fucking life coach, any of these kinds of things, teachers. Can you read yourself? Can you read your students? There's a little phrase I give my students, and they really, really like it. It's what I call the firsts. The firsts in learning, teaching, and healing. The first thing in learning, first know thyself. If you don't know your cognitive configuration, if you can't see your cognitive configuration when you look in the mirror shaving or brushing your hair, you don't know thyself. So start over. Go back to that first square and get it right. What's next? Teaching. First, make the journey yourself. Do you know what your journey is? Do you know how your cognitive configuration works? Do you know what that means? The answer is no, because I have not put this information out, and apparently it's not there yet. So if the answer is no, and the answer is no, then how are you going to teach other humans? How are you going to teach your kids? How are you going to help your mate? Huh? How do you know? You don't. What's next? Healing. First, do no harm. Yeah, pretty much everyone's messing it up, because if you don't know your cognitive configuration, then more than likely you are doing harm to yourself, which messes you up in your head, which means you do harm to others in ways that you don't understand. This in turn harms them. They take this harm and continue on, and beautiful organisms that have been designed for millions and hundreds of thousands of years all start working like shitty junker cars. Why? Dumb drivers who don't know how to deal with their fucking car. So they mess their car up, and they actually help fix other people's cars by fixing their car up like their broken car. Nice job.
Although it is even more rare than the savant condition itself, some savants have no apparent abnormalities other than their unique abilities. This does not mean that these abilities weren't triggered by a brain dysfunction of some sort, but does temper the theory that all savants are disabled and that some sort of trade-off is required. These are known as prodigious savants.
A trade-off is required because a cognitive configuration, there is a way that you have in your head the powers in different rankings to give checks and balances. So there is a trade-off, but it doesn't need to be a disability. I think I could lose a great deal of my disabilities if I could get to where the way I need to work wasn't such a problem from the world around me. Yeah, my spirits tell me that that's the case, and that's why I'm doing a lot of what I'm doing, for myself and for others. Having said that, I don't care how you define it. I am a prodigious savant plus. In fact, they're going to come a new category. Unprecedented prodigious savant mega genius. That's me.
According to Treffert, something that almost all savants have in common is a prodigious memory of a special type, a memory that is describes as very deep but exceedingly narrow. They can recall but have a hard time putting it to use. Also, many savants are found to have incredible artistic or musical ability.
So those who know me in real life know that I don't like to do a lot of things, but the things I like to do, I kind of geek out Uber style on. So if it's grappling, if it's knowing grappling moves, if it's movies, it's knowing actors, if it's role-playing games, knowing spells and magic users have, if it knows the racial differences between elves and dwarves, shit like this. My psyche will just go fanboy crazy on it, and it will learn just an inordinate amount of information, and yes, it's been difficult my entire life to know why my psyche cares about that so specifically and what I could do with it. So that is true. So that much of their research does hold up from what I'm seeing in my research. But what was the last thing?
Artistic or musical ability.
Yes. In my case, you can think of art as a kind of visionary insight into things. So artists are seeing something in a cipher way and they're putting it to prose often, or some other kind of medium. But beyond artistic is visionary, because visionary is being able to see the actual truth that art implies. So you can directly speak it. So you speak the language of what makes natural law work, like E equals MC squared. That's beyond art. That's visionary. That makes people like just weep when they look at its supreme simple elegance, how it explains the clockworks of the universe. That kind of thing just arrests a person. So, what were we talking again? Oh, the art. So the way mine works is the extreme narrowness and depth. I did not have many friends growing up, but this did not mean that I actually was unfamiliar with humans. Quite the opposite. I was a fanatical observer of them, a voyeur, if you will, of humans. I hunted their minds without them knowing it. I started with my parents and just moved on from there. And I did this mainly through movies and through watching people. I was a very lonely child, so I spent most of my time in my room watching movies, and then I would actually travel about. I actually was around people, but they didn't speak with me because I was odd, and that was fine, but I observed them. I would go places. I worked with my parents and sold things, and I had lots of interaction with humans, but I was kind of back inside my head, just sort of watching them. And my brain wanted to memorize lots of movies and movie actors, other famous people, and then liked comparing those faces to the faces of other humans I met. That was just really, really fun. How are they similar? How are they different? And it didn't care about this in any particular way that really would be applicable to anything that I could see around me, but it definitely had that intense sentence nose, like a bloodhound. It just, for some reason, wanted to know that. It was very, very important to it. It OCD'd on that. So I now know why. It sensed that the reason my parents didn't know what they were doing but thought they did, the reason my teachers didn't know what they were doing but thought they did, the reason why most people, everyone, doesn't know what they're doing but thinks they do, was because they do not realize that humans evolve from natural law in such a way to make a good metaphorical riff for a game world evolving in an MMORPG world. So that we are basically artificial intelligences, but we were organically engineered by the cosmos. But within that context, that means that if we are, as a species, one Sims game, there is math to how the various characters are built and how they interact. And there is, and my psyche became obsessed with this. In fact, to the point of pushing out everything else, and to the point of colorizing all humans. Anything it could do to help make sense of how humans are basically all universal among themselves as a species and within the continuum of evolution, and how other humans besides myself are not seeing this and thus keep making errors that to my synesthetic eyes seem rudimentary. So I now realize that was actually what was going on. Now, for those of you wondering about how to learn this skill, do you need to be a synesthete? Do you need to be a super genius like myself? No, you do not. It's sort of like a person who invents a language, or a person who invents a technology, or a person who invents a gun, for example. Let's use that for example. It only takes one person to invent a gun, and then everyone after that can both use the gun. Everyone can use the gun. And actually, quite a few people can learn to make that gun from that dude. Or dudette. We'll be equality friendly here. So, yeah. Now that I've shown it and I can write it down, Christina Morgado has been able to learn it in under 2 years. As the materials got better, as I got smarter at teaching it, as I understood how humans learn what's in my head better, I've gotten faster at this.
Savant-like skills may be latent in everyone and have been stimulated in people by directing low-frequency magnetic pulses into the brain's left hemisphere, which is thought to deactivate this dominant region in at least 90% of right-handers, and allow the less dominant right hemisphere to take over, allowing for processing of savant-like tasks.
Gee, fuck. Humans! Your stupidity never ceases to amaze me. I have to giggle because otherwise I'd go crazy. Read that first sentence to me again.
Savant-like skills may be latent.
Yes. They are not might be, they are. Everyone is a savant waiting to happen, and you would be a prodigious savant if a savant, not one that actually had disabilities. You would just know how to use all your powers. This would mean, however, doing it in the way nature intended and not the way that your neighborhood, parents, teachers, or anything else taught you. That is the difficulty of doing it. But once you do it, all humans are built by natural law to be awesome, prodigious savants of their innate being. Their innate being is prodigiously awesome. Next. Yeah, I guess you can turn synesthesia on that way, but Podler will have a more sophisticated and elegant way of doing that. Yes, basically, long story short, synesthesia, savantness, all these various things are when you turn on modalities of the mind, either perceptive or discernment-based, that aren't as native, and then the native and not as native modalities are intermingling and so forth. So you have to work at it, kind of like going to a gym. I guess I could make someone run faster by sicking rabid dogs on them, but that would not be my choice for phys ed. So, yes, there are much better ways to turn on human synesthesia, and we'll be finding those and putting those out in the world so we no longer have to strobe like people. I think I'm done.